Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Off Air podcast with myself, Joe, and of course the channel regulars Sean and Nigel here joining me today, boys. How are we?
We're here.
Good, thanks. Yes.
Yes, good is about right. I think I can't say we can expect much more than that at the moment. Sean, of course, a little bit more downbeat after some of the latest results, which we'll get into, of course, in this video. So do stay tuned for a deep dive into this past month of March. Of course, that's what we're here to do on this off-air podcast, the monthly roundup, the monthly recap, and of course we are going to be taking a little look back over the month of March. 6 games in that past month as well, and of course, if you're not aware, all losses. So it's going to be very interesting to dive into some of these. Of course, nothing much to talk about. I think in a couple of the games, I think we just kind of got kept out of some of them, but some a little more controversial than others, some a little bit more in terms of our performance, good things to say. So, yeah, sometimes it's, not all about the result. Of course, that's what our management team has been stressing. It's about trying to improve the performances. So, we'll kick things off at the start of the month, the 4th of March. And that was an away game against Solihull Moors. So this was a game that I did not attend. But Nigel, you did attend, of course, did commentate that one. So let us in on your thoughts on that game.
Good one to start with, eh? Yeah. Well, we didn't score, did we? We was kind of in the game, and we just again switched off. I mean, yeah, we know Solihull have got good players, but they've kind of been on. They was on a poor run of form before we played them.
Worst
Hopes are
form in the
high.
league when we played them.
Yeah, exactly. They were below us in the form table, weren't they? But they was at home, and sort of their big players came to the fore. Joe Sabara, I remember he's got the second goal, but then it was just sort of like defensive lapses. I remember Sharmar Lawson on the edge of the area, kind of turned his back on the ball, whether he was waiting for it to come to him or he just misread it, but gave so Shabara the opportunity to get the second and put the game to bed. And it's just one of those that could have been playing till now, and I don't think we'd have scored in that game. It was just, we didn't get thumped, but then I look for positives. I was okay, we didn't get thumped, but then we haven't got thumped in any of the games, have we? But it's sort of like, that's probably down to more them. They got the point safe. We did any sort of attacking threat in the game, a few opportunities, but didn't take those opportunities and paid the price.
Yeah, it seems to be something we've seen a lot of this season. Even in the games we don't necessarily get thumped in as such, where often if we're losing, quite often on the end of a pretty poor performance, a very dominant performance from an opposition side where we don't often get too much out of it. I know I said in a recent comparison video I did on the channel, which if you haven't seen, go and have a little look at that one, cheeky plug there, between Elokobi and Hakan, about the goals scored and the goals conceded per game. Conceding 2 on average almost every game, under George, still about 1.8 a game. And again, that kind of reflected in that one, conceding 2 to Solihull, and still not really scoring many more, averaging just over 1 a game. So, even if we do score, it's usually only 1. But yeah, like you say, we couldn't even get that in that Solihull game, of course, pretty much left ushered out of that one. And I suppose that kind of leads us straight into Wealdstone, doesn't it really, Sean? Because, I mean, that game wasn't too much better in terms of opportunities and things like that. Obviously, we did get a goal in that game through Josh Onibare, who we'll talk about a little bit more, I think, towards the end of this video. But yeah, I mean, he's having a great time. But that really kind of was where he started to show his goal scoring ability, wasn't it?
It was. And to all the Wealdstone fans, apologies. we get Maidstone and there is Wildston out there in the greater world. So apologies for my performance on that particular evening. It drew a lot of ire from their fans. But yeah, so obviously I was at the Solihull game with Nigel. We commentated on that one. Maidstone, a bit like one that springs to mind is the Notts County away first half that you guys both did. And
Mhm.
you fought 43 minutes, defended quite well, comfortable, get away with the 0-0, get back down the motorway, fine. Oh, crap, we've conceded a goal right before half time. We've balls this up, and it's just not going to get any better. Wilston away game, on the other hand, Maidstone really threw the pedal to the metal very early on and were dreadful to start with. And they were 2 down within 20,
Uh,
25 minutes
I
in that
think it was
game.
a bit, oh, it
It
was
was
about 20, yeah.
one of the worst first halves that Maidstone have put in this season. And I did York as well, for example. So shows you how bad it was. Second half, though, come out like a team reborn, revitalised. And again, Shawnee Bear would be, the standout man, as will be a common theme throughout the rest of this video. He got the goal back, some lovely interplay on the left-hand side with him and Deacon and others, and just a lovely little finish at the end. And for a lot of that second half, there was a little bit of hope. Not as much as we would have liked, but again, because we were playing catch up, it's very rare that we're able to get from behind in matches this season. I think it's only been about 8 points or so. I think we've managed to get from behind, and pretty much all of those have been at home. So, yeah, it was a hide into nothing. We gave ourselves a mountain to climb very early on, all the other catchphrases. And yeah, just another away day that was fairly traumatic and one to forget, frankly.
Yeah, I think, as you say, that's pretty much been the story of the season, especially when we see so many times in these games where we start off so poorly. Really, really poor first halves we've seen a lot of the time this season. It was something that wasn't all too common last season, but I think the signs were there that we didn't always start the games best, but we were always that kind of second half team. Obviously picked up many, many points in the latter stage of the games last season. And I think, we still kind of seen that first half, maybe not quite there yet, easing into games, got away with it a little bit last season. Of course, quality not quite as good down in the south, but when you're in this division, obviously you're going to get punished by that. And as you saw, 20 minutes, 2 goals, bish bash bosh. It was as simple as that for Wilstone early on. And then when you're down the bottom and averaging a goal a game or so, asking for 2 goals in a game against a team who's already 2 goals up against you, it's never looking ever too lightly, is it really? So, of course, I think by that point everybody was kind of in the relegation, certainly on the cards boat. So that meant we only really had one outlet left for this season in terms of things to look forward to, and that, of course, was the FA Trophy, a quarter final, the furthest we've ever got in the competition. Of course, now it is only a one-leg quarter final. So we had Barnet, of course, the highest ranked team left in the competition at that stage, and we did host them at the Gallagher Stadium. Now, Nigel, we did end up drawing this game 2-2 in normal time, and it did go to penalties, and that was, of course, where we did end up losing 4-3. So how about your thoughts on that one? Obviously a really tough pill to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah, anytime you lose on penalties is a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? And like I said, like you just said, that was our hope for the season. And although George hasn't won any league games, he has won at Notts County, getting on penalties, and that performance at Eastleigh. Teams that are all in the playoff places, in and around the playoff places at top of the league. So yeah, it was a very good performance. We went ahead again through Roy Deacon, didn't we, in that one? And then we so Wayne Joe Smith got his first goal, a cheeky little penalty, and yeah, but it wasn't to be, was it? Again, it's just like we just can't seem to get it over the line. We have good spells in games, and as we're talking about some of the other games later on in the month, sometimes you can go into the ground and you can be watching the game and you can think, what is a team that's pushing for promotion or what is a team that's rooted to the bottom of the table? You can't really tell the difference, but it's just about taking those chances, isn't it? I mean, again, we had that opportunity in the Barnet game. Harry Smith, who was sort of like up until that point, had been banging the goals in for Barnet. He went off injured, so they had to make a substitution after 5 minutes, which, whether that's obviously they brought Kabamba on and it's just a player of just as much quality, but you've used up a substitution. So when you're trying to see a game out at the end and get your penalty takers on, it kind of reduces your options, doesn't it? But again, we just didn't. We took the lead again in that one. Roy Deacon scored the goal, and we looked comfortable, but just stupid mistakes again. It's at the back, It's just we've just got to be, we've got the mechanics of a good team there, and you can kind of see what George is trying to build, but we're not doing it in the right areas. We're not in the penalty box in our own third. We get chances. We are creating chances, but we're not taking those chances. And you referred to the National League South there. You're not going to get too many chances. If you don't take your chances when they do come along to yourself, you're not going to get another chance again. I mean, that proves that in the trophy in the first round against Worthing, didn't it? We only had a couple of chances, but we won the game 2-0, and they had a few chances, they didn't take them. So that's the standard, and they're up there in the National League South. But this level, if you don't take your chances, you can't control the games, and you're just passengers in games, and you've got to be, when you've got that advantage, take it. When you get the first goal, go for the second goal. We don't do that. We kind of sit back, and then we have to go again because they score, they equalise, and I mean, you could just copy and paste all the games, couldn't you? All the rest of the games of the month, copy and paste, copy and paste. It's going to be.
That's a really good good sign for the rest of this video, Nigel. I'm sure people continue to listen after that. But as you say, it was tough going out of the cup in that manner. Of course, penalties is always a lottery. I know many strikers over the years, famous ones on the television and such, have said, never take 2 penalties in one game and all that sort of thing. And obviously, for Sol, that unfortunately was the case. Scored a fantastic first one, missed that one, the penalty shootout. But in the end, it wasn't really down to him. Of course, Barham missing his penalty in the shootout as well. But for me, the big thing that you said there was managing to get things over the line, something that we failed to do many, many times this season. And we've dropped a lot of points from leading positions. And Sean, in the week, did drop that stat on air, about 29 points dropped from winning positions this season. So, or drawing positions. So, it's not really good enough. Of course, that's where you're going to lose the majority of your points. If we've managed to see those games out, maybe hold on to a 1-1 rather than lose a game, or hold on to a narrow victory towards the end of a game, we'd be seeing ourselves up in that mid-table region at the moment in around 50 points. And I think everybody would be more than happy with a season like that. So, it really is these fine margins which we've kind of failed to capitalise on at this point in the season. And Sean, you're looking a bit eager there. So
I was going to say, just to add to what you were going to say, not just mid-table. Bear in mind, before the Tuesday night game we've just had where we played Bromley, there were 4 teams outside the playoffs, 8th to 11th, and all 4 of them are on 55 points. If you add the 29 points we dropped to the 24 that we've got, that's 53. So we're only 2 points off of the chasing pack, trying to catch up with Boreham Wood and Eastleigh. So you've seen with a lot of the performances this season, the top 7 sides, I said it Tuesday, I'll say it again, a lot of the top 7 sides, we've taken them to 90 minutes, Chesterfield, Wrexham, Woking, Bromley, all of these sides that are all up there, we take them to the bitter end, just haven't got the nous, aren't switched on. And this is what the problem has been. We've been that close. And a lot of people might say the investment, the squad recruitment, whatever, hasn't been great. On the flip side of that, we've managed to achieve this much and be that far off the mark whilst be that close to the mark at the same time. So sometimes, I'm not
Very
going to say
ambiguous statement.
it is. But when you look at it that way, it's the toss of a coin. I'd say a good dozen matches this season, it's a toss of a coin
Yeah.
where we could have gone on. So it's the fine margins. It's so many damn cliches, but we've been unfortunate as much as we have been shoddy this season. And most of it's our own downfall, unfortunately, our own cause.
Yeah, 100%. Looking at, of course, those finer margins, we kind of go on to this Maidenhead game as well, which for me was a really kind of is a funny one. Everything leading up to that game was just despicable. Like everything that went on. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, JP on comms, you would have seen my tweet after the game of me sitting in a puddle of water in the stand there with the equipment all over the place, trying to hash things together to get us on air. And Adrian was running late; he didn't get in till half time, and you know,
he has a habit of that, Joe. To be fair,
yeah. I mean, every time me and Adrian commentate together, it doesn't really go well. Such as 45-minute detours 3 times on the way to Scunthorpe, amongst other things. But we'll spare Adrian that travelling embarrassment. But yeah, I think that kind of for me set up that game as how that one was going to go. Of course, we did end up going 2-0 down, both goals coming from Aqua, and both exactly the same goal. Carbon copy, left-footed cross from the left side straight into between the goalposts, which is where Aqua and many strikers, especially at this level, will pick up the majority of their goals. And Maidstone just failing to defend it very sloppily and 2-0 down in half an hour. But then we again saw this kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing we've seen a lot of this season, where second half come out look a completely different team, much better side for the majority of the second half, and that's where we picked up, of course, that goal through Regan Booty, a free kick from the edge of the box, not a direct free kick as I was corrected, so as it was laid off. But yeah, a great goal nonetheless. But again, it's just not capitalising on those chances. We had many opportunities to get back into that game at 2-2. We could have maybe nicked a point from that one come the end of the game. And there were just opportunities, which of course, looking back on it, we did rue missing those. So Maidenhead for me was another kind of funny one where these finer margins are replicated once more, and you have to look at the rest of the team, of course, and maybe try and pinpoint those areas in which we are vulnerable. Of course, like I said, conceding 2 goals between the sticks a couple of yards out, there's going to be some sort of pattern there occurring, which is leading to those goals going in. And I think looking at those defensive mistakes, that's going to set us up really for what we've got to talk about for the rest of this month. And of course, we'll go on to Woking next. So on to Woking now, of course. And Nigel, we're going to come to you on this one, as you did commentate on this fixture with Darren Stiles, of course. So obviously a game in which Maidstone had a great opportunity to pick up a few points, a couple of stages during the game, really. And, of course, being a commentator for that situation, how that unfolded towards the end, another extra time goal we've conceded, which has resulted in a loss. And for you, how do you feel that that's kind of summed things up for you? Is that kind of just compounded what we already knew? Is this just maybe opening it up to the wider fan base of, right, well, this is kind of how we do things now? Or is this just another kind of tick in the book for you? Is this something you were expecting before the game?
Well, before the game, to be fair, I was kind of expecting, if there was one game where we was going to take a tonking, that would have been the game I would have thought, because they were sitting third in the league. They're only ahead of. They've got exactly the same record as Chesterfield. They're only 2 goals above them. Plus 2 goal difference over Chesterfield into that third place. And third place now is really what is all them teams below Wrexham and Notts County are fighting for, because you miss a game, miss the first round of games, and you've only got a home game for a chance to get to Wembley and the Football League. So yeah, I was expecting to get beat quite convincingly, but that didn't turn out to be the case. And I said earlier about the copy and paste. It was exactly the same as our away game at Woking. If you remember, it was during the World Cup in December. It was an early kickoff. Went 1-0 up through Sam Corn, and it all unravelled in the second half when Sanford got his injury. And again, I was commentating again with Darren this game. For those that don't know, Darren, he used to live near Woking, and he has been to quite a lot of games of theirs in the past, and even this season as a Woking fan. So he's got quite an insight to Woking. And even he was saying on the commentary, if you had Verbal Alien came from outer space and and they came to watch the game, and you said that one team was third and one team was rooted to the bottom, you wouldn't be able to tell which team it was. And that was definitely the case. It was a bit like a basketball match. They had their chances, we had our chances, we defended well, everything was going right. The shots that they did get, Barham was in a good position, he caught the ball and, came out when he needed to. And, it was an all-round competent performance. But as we've said, Johnny Barr got his goal, good goal as well, good link-up play, which is promising for next season if they are both with us, with Green, Sol, Wanjo Smith and Johnny Barr. He took it well, controlled it, bang, bottom corner, deserved to be in the lead. Had a passage of play after the goal where we was okay. We didn't just sit back on it. We was trying to get the second goal, and then they scored. And it was again from a corner. Amand, whatever you call him, Podge, whatever they say, got his header in, good header. And don't forget that he's when Grimsby was in this league a few years ago, he got the golden boot. So he's got form. He was the spearhead of Newport in all their cup jocks a few years ago. So he's a good experienced player, but we just didn't pick the man up. It was just basic defending again. And then again, we make a couple of substitutions, and you mentioned it in your previous videos, Joe. It's such fine margins. We've said it before. Hakan, for all these thoughts and whatever you think of him, he was. He didn't say it wasn't luck, but 9 times out of 10, when he made a substitution, they made a difference. We think of Joel Bell and all those moments we had last season. But he made 2 substitutions. He took Johnny Barr and Wanjo Smith off, and we kind of lost our threat at that point. And you could just see it coming. And again, it's just. I still say on commentary it wasn't a corner. You can see that Joe sort of went away from it, but you can see probably why the referee did give it. He looked to his linesman. The linesman didn't make no indication. The goal was in his way, and he was guessing. He was guessing that it was going to be a corner, but it wasn't. It completely gone out before it did touch Jerome, if it did touch him at all. But saying that, we didn't defend the corner, just like Wrexham, just like Dorking before Christmas. The last passage of play, there again, Podge, 2-1. And you could just, I don't know what it is, whether it's a mentality thing, whether it's just, I don't know. It's just where we are, isn't it? It's just, that is, like I said, it's just that is our season, all in that one game. We haven't been blown away. We are competing with teams, but just that getting the point, over the line. A point would have been massive in that game. It would have been a statement. A team that's chasing third place, get a point. Thank you very much. Move on to Tuesday night. But we didn't, and it just changed everything. Just it just it's just so deflating, isn't it? You know.
Certainly is indeed. I mean, look at the three of our faces just thinking about that. I mean, for me, that was, like you say, just another one of those where you had that feeling that, like, as soon as, like you say, Nigel, Sol and Josh came off, you just thought, where's that outlet? Where's that kind of pressure release? Because, you know, obviously when you pin back, you're going to be punting the ball up every now and then. And if you don't have anybody to chase it, the other team know they've got another opportunity to come forward straight away, and that's not going to give you a time to rest at all. So for me, that was a really strange couple of substitutions, something we've seen a few times now under Elokobi, and something as well I think we saw in the game against Bromley in the week. But Sean, I see your pose there.
Yes,
hit us with it.
Thinker is here again. To draw some comments on what's been stated there, Hakan last season, every sub he made turned to gold. This season, he had the problem of making substitutions and generally not working. And George, unfortunately, has carried that on. There was a quote he had in the press after the game on Saturday where he said he was resting Shonny Bear.
Yeah, and he said that on the post-match interview, didn't he?
Yeah, you've got half a dozen games left of a season.
And you're saving him for Tuesday.
Exactly.
To bring him off again.
Exactly. Run these people into the ground.
Yeah.
Because you've got a month left and they will feel the benefit of it. They will have a good couple of months off where they're not troubled by anything. Run them into the ground. If he's your best player, yes, I understand you want to make sure that player can carry on his form for those last 6 games. But at the same time, if you've got realistic opportunity to win a match, you need to keep your best player on the pitch, even if they've only got one bloody leg to stand on. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah. My only thinking behind it can be he's bringing him off to save him for next season, just because we know how prevalent injuries have been in this team and how some of our best players have had injuries that are 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months in the last, 2 years. And, you know, you've got
Stanford, Luque, Galvin,
Greenwich.
That's half a dozen. That's half a team that would get you the top half.
Yeah, going into next season with no Sol Wanjao-Smith or Josh Shonibare for the first 4 months, if we don't have them until Christmas, that's pretty much any chance we've got of going up gone, in my opinion, really. You know, we can't do anything in a league where we've got the other options that we have starting every week. Unfortunately, you know, these people are rotation players for a reason, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. And of course, that brings us on to the final game of the month and this review. And that's Bromley. Bromley, of course, following on from that torrid time against Woking, has, of course, reflected that torrid time against Woking. 3-2 loss, a 91st minute loss. Another goal in injury time conceded to cost us points in the league and against our local rivals, if you can call them that. But yeah, a very miserable game. I was very happy to see Josh score again. To be fair to him, you know, really loving what he's doing right now. Every week, really, actually, he's scoring, which is really good to see. But again, it's Maidstone doing this thing at points in the game. You know, when we went 2-2, I thought, I actually turned to someone and said, imagine if we win the game. And then I kind of realised what I said, and I thought, I've just said, imagine if we can win a game. I mean, there goes my mic. It's been that long since we've won and felt what it's like to get a result in a game. You know, even in the situation we're in, a win would still mean so much, especially for those at the club, not just the fans. And that really give us a platform to kind of, you know, build upon. We go, actually, maybe we're not that bad. We can compete. Okay, maybe not anymore in the situation we're in, but that's going to give them confidence going forward. Again, I just want to rebuff my point that I've made during the week about Rafe Brown being a legend. Love him to bits. Good game as well from him. Really impressive how he's returned straight into the side. Really, really impressed with that after so long out. And to get that red card, I mean, I definitely shouted, destroy him, go through him, Rafe, as he was charging him down. Of course, you don't want anybody to get injured, but I want to see someone just like the Roy Keane thing I quoted during the week. Just got to make yourself feel better at that point. The game's already gone. It's the 97th minute. It is what it is. But again, it was a tough one to take. Sean, of course, you were there. You were on probably one of the best commentaries we've had in a few years. Certainly the most eventful, I'd say, since probably Tonto last season, but for completely different reasons.
Indeed, it's the irony of being sandwiched between two stoppage time defeats, one even later than Tonto by Woking. And yeah, all on pretty much the same anniversary weekend. So it was always going to come back and bite us on the backside at some point, because you have your highs and you have your 22-23 seasons. And yeah, it was a cracking game. If you're a neutral watching that was a great game of football to watch. Unfortunately, it was very entertaining. A lot happened. Referee played his part, of course, as we've had so often. We've said, I said on commentary, first 10 minutes didn't look like we were going to do anything. I think we had one half chance. Goal came out of nowhere, absolute bit of class to get us ahead. Wonderful ball through. And then we held Bromley at arm's length until probably about 5-10 minutes before the end of the half. And yet again, we get to near half time, switch off again. 2 goals, bit like you said for Maidenhead, pretty much identical, just balls across the 6-yard box, not dealt with. You can see them ending up in front of or behind the centre-back, and they're trying to work out where their position is, and it's all gone apart. Yet again, Maidstone come out fairly early on in the second half, like they did at Wealdstone, and get an equaliser through Sam Bone. And you just think, it keeps repeating itself so often, these positions, these timings, we have everything in. And then they go down to 10 men, Bromley, and you're thinking, like you say, Joe, whisper it quietly, we might be onto a winner. And then you remember who you're watching play.
I did also, I want to say, put a message in the chat saying that it's coming. We will lose the game, but I had that glimmer.
I think I recall that being when we were at 1-0 rather than at 2-2. Although I think we recorded it 2-2 as well as saying come back to this at 1-0.
Yeah.
And then just the goal, the unfortunate mistake for Tom Hadler, clearly in tears afterwards, which I can't blame him, because again,
me too.
I think most people were. I know Fred certainly seemed like he was, and we'll get onto him in a minute. But they've had so many decent performances, and I've said this off air whilst we've been recording this in between takes. And takes, I mean, this is generally once through, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's not how much editing goes into this.
Breaks, stoppages.
Breaks, exactly, yeah. Can't talk about
breaks.
I'll talk about Scottish small ones. Don't talk about stoppages in Maidstone at the moment. But just the performances have been there. They've just not been consistent 90 minutes. We said it all throughout these reviews, throughout the season. We had a good 30 minutes there, 45 minutes there, 60 minutes there. We had a good 20 and another 15 against Bromley. But it's just switching off so often at the end of a game. It was the 10th stoppage time goal that we had conceded this season. And it was the 3rd game in a row where we'd taken the lead before then going on to lose it. So that took us from 20 points conceded from winning positions up to 29 in the space of a week or 10 days or whatever. It's just been mind-numbingly repetitive, just how quickly we keep doing the same thing. And you think, you go back training a day or two later and you get told, don't do this thing in the 6-yard box. Don't do that thing out of the corner in the 94th minute. Do this, do that. And they get out on the pitch and they get those exact minutes again and just, and it seems like it's disappeared. How or why that's happened, I don't know. But they clearly must go into those things in detail in training, because we see it on a Friday, we see the videos, we talk to the coaching staff, they know these things. And yet when they get out on the pitch, it does seem to go wrong, and it's frightfully annoying. And again, as Fred, who I'm going to talk about briefly now, said, if this season was an animal, it would have been put out of its misery by now and put to sleep. And that's how it's felt for quite a number of games recently, because the same predictable thing has been happening. The lame cat has been running out into the road to get run over again and again and again. And it's still alive somehow. Mathematically, we look ahead in a moment, but mathematically,
It's on
Saturday
life support.
likely the switch is being flicked off on Saturday to spoil things. But mathematically,
I think someone's sitting there with the switch just going on and off all the time.
Yeah, it does feel like it, yeah. But yeah, just a big shout out to Fred for somehow getting through that performance without swearing.
Or jumping off the gantry.
Or jumping off the gantry or pushing anyone else off the gantry. It was nice to do a commentary with him and not be the sole cause of his angst. But again, that's that shows you how Maidstone have been this season in these performances. But yeah, saying when we conceded, having the gantry collapse now, we wouldn't really care. The Jesus H. Christ is probably going to be remembered more than his madness against Hungerford 13 months ago, because we all have our little catchphrases, whether it's madness, Tonto, liquid football, whatever it is. But I do feel like Jesus H. Christ is going to, it's nearly Easter, and I'll say it, Jesus H. Christ will have a life of its own after the season is finished, which you would expect, because that's what our Lord and Saviour up there would do. Yeah, great fun, horrendous result, horrendous luck for Maidstone. Some of it is our own doing. We all understand that. We know that some of it is self-inflicted, and we can't blame officials, infrastructure investment, etc., 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 etc. It's down to the players, it's down to the management, and it's just very, very, very frustrating. And they are going to do everything that they can for the rest of the season, as they have been most of this season by the looks of things, to try and rectify that, ready ahead of next season. But it's a hell of an evening. It really was. It really was memorable for all the wrong reasons, which by this point, it numbs the pain somewhat, because it's just been like this for so long now. And if you're going to get that angry about it, I know, yes, you're an avid supporter and you want it to be great all the time, but life mirrors football, football mirrors life. It's not perfect, it's not pretty every single second that it's going on. Sometimes it can be a bit shit. And that's where we've been this season, unfortunately. And it will get better, because if you don't have dark days and bad days, it doesn't make you appreciate the good ones. I'm not Jerry Springer. Good night. That's what I felt like for a minute there. Sorry, I was going to use you or something. Crikey, sorry. Back in the room. Go.
Yeah, back in the room indeed. Very shit, I think, is a pretty adequate phrasing of how it's gone lately.
Back to the video, will we? We'll save that for the season review.
Yeah, I don't know if YouTube will let me title it that, but yeah, obviously everybody here watching will agree. Those who don't, I'm not really sure football's for you. But it is what it is, as I've said already. You just got to accept it now. There's no point getting angry over it. I said before we started recording that I'm not really as bothered about going down as I thought I would be. I just want it to get over with now, get us back in the south, get us sunny days over at Braintree and Concord and whatever. Caravan parks and dodgy stands. That's what football is all about. But yeah, so that is all the games looked at now. And we're just going to have a little quick chat about some of the other ongoings very briefly. Of course, we have seen a few ongoings, which I've made some recent videos on the channel, looking at George Elokobi becoming the permanent manager, which we're going to talk about for just 5 minutes here as well. But if you want to have a little more of an in-depth look at George's tenure so far, what we might have to look forward to in terms of his appointment, I'll put some videos in the description and things like that in the end of the video as well, so you can have a little look at those. But there's also another video about Ryan Gordon being let go by George as well. So check that one out if you are interested. But Nigel, talking about George, of course, has got the permanent manager job. Many people critiquing that decision from the board as perhaps a cheap decision, or perhaps a kind of a mates rates decision or something like that, is a few things I've seen banded about. Of course, some may feel that's harsh, some may feel that's accurate, some may say that's not harsh enough. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this was the right decision? Do you think, obviously till the end of the season, you can maybe understand, but of course he's now contracted to next season as well. What are your thoughts on that? Are you happy with that decision? Is that something maybe you could see going quite wrong, or maybe working out?
I don't know. I mean, when you appoint a manager, especially a first-time manager, it's always a gamble, isn't it, on the owner's part? There's no blueprint that says, just because you get an experienced ex-football league manager in, that's going to be successful. At the same time, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a failure if you get a fresh manager in. I think importantly for me, it was just about that continuity, that so we knew where we was in that respect. So we know that George is here for next season now. Maybe, that could be to our advantage because, as we know, and as come out in the local press, even just today, we are now looking towards next season. We are accepting our fate. Maybe that will give us an advantage over Torquay and Yeovil, who are still getting players in to survive. So players on a lot of wages, maybe. Whereas we're sort of planning for that going forward. Yeah, it's worked out for us before, hasn't it? With Jay, he was just given the reins that, just ex-player, just coming to the end of his career, and look where that took us. That journey that took us all on. To me, it was just about getting the confidence behind the man. So, right, it's yours for the year. He can build his own management team. He can get on board who he wants to get on. He can talk to players that, the advantage of it is he only retired last year, so there'll be players that he's been in the same dressing room
Yeah,
with,
that's what
and
I
we
was
know
saying.
he's quite an influential character. There'll be players that he's played with in the football league days that that he would come and play for us just because it's George Elokobi, not necessarily looking at it as a National League South side team. And I still say we're quite a big draw. If you're a winning team and you're going to win 70-80% of your games, maybe we'd like to think it's 80%, but the majority of your games, whether that be the top of the National League South or whether you're a struggling team in the bottom of the National League, I think you'll attract that better quality of players because players are, they want to be associated with a successful team rather than a failing team, aren't they? So, I mean, you said earlier about Johnny Barr and Wanjo Smith and whether they're with us next year and if we lose them to injury. What has impressed me is the fact that they've actually got the contacts to get those players in.
Mm.
So, you can see the quality of the player they're getting in. Sam Bones in that category as well. Burko is somebody I know, talking to people around the club that they've kind of got him in with the view to sort of doing something with him because, if he's going to be out of contract next year at Salford, he's from London, he's from down the south. So, maybe that's something we can go there. And even with the two lads we got in last week from Watford and Charlton, it's not necessarily about getting those players in, but it's about building up those contacts. Getting your youngsters, your under your 18s, your promising lads in, doing something with them, and building up those contacts, which is what George needs to do now. And we said everybody, it's got to start somewhere, haven't they? He's an ex-Premier League player, so he's dropping down sort of 3 or 4 levels to sort of come to us. If he can get players to come with him from that level, then it's going to be good. So, I say it's a gamble, but the position that we're in, I think it's a gamble worth taking. There's no certainties in football, is there? You go into each game with 50-50 chance, or probably 33.5% chance of 3 different results, but you just got to give them that time to do it, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I'd be certainly on the side of giving him that support. I said in recent videos that I'm a little bit dubious of the decision, but I'm not completely against it. I think, I said in one video before the decision was actually made that, if it is going to be the case that he's our permanent manager going forward, then we need to get behind him and show that support. Of course, critiquing along the way, I think that's absolutely fair, but, not questioning everything or not, maybe digging things out if they're not going right straight away. Like for me at the moment, I'm not going to critique George on results because look at how the rest of the season's gone. It's not exactly anything you can do about it. I don't think there's any manager we could have got in that would have got us safe come the end of the season. So, just look, for me, I'm just looking at it that way, reset for next season, clean slate, and just go from there, really. I mean, if we start off next season, the first 10 games, and we've got, 5 losses, 3 draws, and a couple wins, I might be a bit questioning, is it good enough, for where we want to be in that division next season? But yeah, I think, it's certainly a risk that is probably worth taking considering the lack of options elsewhere at the moment. Of course, the 2 bigger choices we would have had probably have got pretty decent situations where they are at Cray and Gillingham and things like that. So, I think it could work out very much. So, Sean, is there anything that you wanted to add on that? Of course, it's quite a big decision, so I'm sure there'll be something that you might want to contribute to this.
It's a big decision. It was a big decision. That's why it took a long time. I know a lot of people were quite negative about what came out in the press about, we've interviewed managers and this, that, and the other, and we hadn't interviewed anyone. Then we had, and then George quite rightly come out and said that, well, I'm glad that they looked at other people and wanted to go with me. One, that gives me a confidence boost, and 2, I know that I'm the best. I have the confidence in myself, and that's the sort of bold brashness that you need. It was always an appointment for next season. I think I've been fairly clear on this amongst us, secretly and publicly, for a very long time. We were down in January. We had that loss against York. Things were getting toxic. Things haven't got much better off the pitch in that sense, in terms of the working environment, who's there, and the fan interactions haven't been great. Solihull, there wasn't some nice stuff. The Woking game hasn't been some great stuff. Bromley always brings its own challenges, but the quality and the style of football has probably been as good as it was for a long period last season. It's just the defending has gone to pot at times, and we've mentioned the individual mistakes. So you don't iron that out with a new coach overnight. I know overnight has been almost 3 months now, but if they've got that in their locker and that's still happening, be it an experienced defender beforehand, or be it youngsters on loan who've come in recently, the trajectory has always been down. It is very hard to change that very quickly. So we were always heading down, and 20th probably would have been the best position we could have finished in this season come January, and the set of results that we had. The fact that we had 5 wins up to that point, we hadn't won in about 5 or 6 since the Maidenhead game at home at the end of November. And to also draw on the fact that, the last time we appointed someone in a similar situation was Jay, the fact that in the 2010-11 season was the last season we went through without getting a league double over any club in the division we were in. We appointed Jay in the March, and as we say, 7.5 years later, turned out okay. Whether George can replicate 3 promotions in 4 years, I mean, if he could, then
I'll build the fucking statue for him outside the ground.
Yes, exactly. We'd probably end up in League One, which, the way football goes, if some of the investment is there, then it's not out of the realms of possibility. You only have to look at sides like Burton, Doncaster. Yeovil's been mentioned in reverse by Nigel earlier on. So who knows? Sometimes you need that bit of time. At the end of the day, we had an absolutely awful finish. after the Wheeler debacle and Jay going early on in the season, we got relegated. John and Hack for a season and a half, or for 2/3 of the season before COVID hit, were there or thereabouts for a playoff push. The following season, had a squad together, couldn't do sod all with that because it still ended because of the COVID still. And then last season, he got a squad together and made it work. So you can see these things with a bit of patience aren't an overnight thing. They do take a bit of time. So the fact that George will have 6 months in the job before the season proper gets started next season in South, again, for my money, it's always been an appointment for next season because the people, as you said, Joe, the people who are available, we weren't going to get your Woys in, your Roy Hodgson, or Sam Allardyce, or Deitch, or anyone like that at this level to come out with a miracle and all that sort of stuff. It's not within our pay packet, So who we've got is who we've got. He's got a bond. He's got a relationship with the fans, and I don't think this 6 months, the 3 or 4 months this season, the 6 months total, will suffer too much. I understand we've spoken about, well, if we don't have a win in over half a season in that time, and most of that is under him, it will mean that next season we need to hit the ground running. And to be fair, I know we did when we all come back from the COVID, and we hit the ground running, and we had a little wobble, and then we hit even more ground and just ran through it solid for 4 or 5 months. So there isn't going to be too much of a window for George. The honeymoon will be a poor one in Skegness by the looks of things for the rest of this season, but hoping that we can get ourselves to avoid Bognor and Eastbourne for quite some time potentially, if we can get through those sorts of fixtures next season, to get us back to the delights of one of Notts County or Wrexham still potentially by then. Tongue in cheek, who knows? They might still both be there or come back again. Certainly one of them might still be there, but
yeah, you never know. Of course, looking at how things have gone for Wrexham in the past, they could still be down if they don't win it outright. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like you say, something for the future. They probably said to him when they appointed him, don't matter at all what you do for the rest of this season. We're not even going to look at the results. Do your best to keep the fan base on side is probably the best we can ask for. It's not gone very well, to be fair, but you never know how things will turn out come next season. We may get a few players in, we may have a really good pre-season, and we may start off next season pretty well in the summer. So now we are at the final segment of the podcast that we do very regularly, of course, and that's where we're going to have a little look forward and one quick last look back at our player of the month. So as you would know if you are a channel regular, we do not confer as to who our player of the month will be. It typically plays out as me saying something stupid, Nigel saying something pretty sensible, and then Sean completely disagreeing with both of us. So we'll see how it goes. This time I think we're going to be pretty spot on for who's going to get this March player of the month. And I'd like to go first. I think I speak for everybody in saying that Josh Sonibare is my player of the month. For me, the only player who's not really had a bad game in this month. He might not have scored a goal or set one up, but in every game, but in the games we have scored, he's involved in some aspect the majority of the time. Since coming into the club not too long ago now, he's really, I'd say, been our best player in terms of a consistent set of performances. I think going forward, he looks a really bright prospect. And considering the bar that I had for him set when he first came in, my expectations were pretty low given his previous record. Obviously, I watched him play a little bit in some highlights and things, but you can't always tell too much from those. And his career up to this point hadn't been flourishing. A lot of youth football, a lot of trialing out at teams like Hornchurch and things like that. So I wasn't expecting a great deal from him coming in. I thought he could be someone that contributes to the side quite well, but I never expected him to be hitting the goals home and setting up the goals he has been since coming in. So for me, for that reason, he is going to be my March Player of the Month. So, Nigel, agree or disagree? That is the question.
Agree.
Yeah, come on, that's 2 months in a row.
Yeah, no, I think you can look past him. Really, he's just he's been a revelation. I mean, don't forget he came into the side originally, and he was playing at right wing back. He came on at Oldham, and I think he played Solihull at right wing back. But since he's been pushed forward, he played on the right wing of a free. Wheelstone scored a goal there. Very impressed with him in the last 2 games when he's been playing up top with Sol. There seems to be a good partnership developing there. There's good understanding. I mean, you only have to look at the goal he scored on Tuesday evening against Bromley. It was his initial hold-up play, laid it off to Booty, who played a ball that we saw so many times last year, that what I call the Booty ball, just to run onto it without breaking his stride, one touch, bang, goal. It's just like, and like Sean said in his review of the Bromley game, we'd been under the cosh for the first 20 minutes, and goals like that can change games. You can be under the cosh and take that one chance you get. So definitely a player that you want to hopefully get on a contract for next season, or get some kind of deal together for him. My only worry would be for the games we've got coming up. I mean, I noticed on Tuesday evening, Neil Harris and Andy Hessenthaler at the game. Obviously, the Gillingham manager and the head of recruitment. Probably watching Bromley players, but certainly if he wasn't in their attention at that point, the performance he put in on Tuesday evening would have raised that attention. And it's sort of like a hypothetical situation, isn't it? We're going to play Notts County at home. We're probably going to have a lot of scouts at that game. Probably watching the Notts County players, but
They might be surprised.
Absolutely. What would you like? Somebody like Shonny Barr, who comes in, scores a couple of goals, we nick a point. Heaven forbid we score, actually win that game. He's going to erase himself, and it's going to be sort of like, it's a worry, but you got to play these players. Like you said in your videos before, Maidstone are a club that want to be associated with developing players and giving them that stepping stone up into the football leagues, and I probably haven't got a problem with that. But that's just been one bright spark in this month. So that's why I would say that he would be my player of the season.
Season. Wow, he's been
jumping
that
the gun a
good
bit
in
there,
a short
but no,
period.
player of
You
the
never know.
I did say on comms,
player of the month.
I did say on comms on Tuesday night, Nigel. I don't know how many players have come in February and ended up winning player of the season, but you never know with Shonny Bear. You never know. You never know.
I would have to say as well, just to mention on that, Booty, I think had a really good month.
Yeah.
We mentioned him in that pass that he put through, and he started the month out of the squad, out of the team. Then he sort of only came on Barnet in the second half there. But when he's not there, you can see the difference he makes. He's probably hasn't had as much success this season with his forward passing than we know he can in the South last year. But of course, to top that off, he got his England call up. Whatever the merits of that is, it's still an England call up, and he did play 85, 87 minutes, wasn't it, in that game? So it's good experience for him, and it's certainly an honour to be called up for England. So yeah, well done him, and we probably will lose him at the end of the season, but like we've said before, it's good that these players are learning their trade at Maidstone and being recognised for that trade, and then going on, so that can only help with attracting players in the future.
Yeah, certainly. It's certainly worth mentioning Booty getting that call up. Very impressive performance from him in that game as well. So I've been told, didn't watch that game against Wales C, but my dad did, and he was raving about his performance in that game. Certainly holding his own and looking a very bright spark in that game. So all congratulations go to him, of course, for that. Now, Sean, on to yourself. If it's not Josh Shonny Barre or Rafe Brown for that one tackle and red card against Bromley, then I think we're going to have a bit of a scrap on the podcast.
We might, yeah. Got to give shout outs to Dom and Bivesh coming back from their loan spells to get more football. They have been fairly decent, consistent in the middle of the park when they've been called upon this month. They've been very good. Booty as well, especially last night. The three of them in midfield combined. We saw a lot of them three last season. Obviously, we've missed Corn for quite some time now for the rest of this season. And that three did work quite well and has done on a lot of occasions. Sam Bone for me as well, especially last night. He really picked another time to get another good goal for us, that being his second one for us, having got one literally 4 weeks before and against Scunny that helped us get one of very few points that we have now in George's tenure. But yeah, probably for the first time this season, I think all three of us are indeed in agreement on player.
What did we do last month? Did we all go Lawson last month, or did you change it up?
I'm sure I would have changed up from memory.
Yeah, probably
did. Click here to check that from last month.
Yeah.
Do that. 4 goals in 7 games. He's filled the gap that has been left by Jack Barham leaving, of course, after the Barnet game. And yeah, without him, not that we've got any more points with or without him technically these last few games, but certainly he's been the individual crux, spark, moment, whatever you call it, for March. He has been a real revelation, and if we do need to get some cash for him, I hope we've got him tied down for next season already. And if we haven't, we need to very quickly, because as Nigel's quite rightly pointed out, you've got Football League scouts looking at him because he's going to be one of the main people that would have been looked at on Tuesday night. There's certainly others within that team and that squad, and certainly even from the Bromley squad as well, of course. Don't forget it's 2 Kent teams that are fairly close and housing these players who can go up and down the M2, A2, across to Gillingham. Not too much of a problem. So yeah, it has to be Shonny Bear. It's absolute no-brainer. It's literally the best player of the month, and I will reiterate, answers on a postcard to us at JP on Comms HQ. Have we ever had a player of the season, or do you know of any club that has ever had a player that's had a player of the season join in the January transfer window, potentially for your top flight? I could look at a Trippier or a Guimaraes for Newcastle last season as potentially being the best player of your season by only being there for half a season. Shonny Bear, if he has another month, if he gets another 4 in 6, and he's 8 in 13 for the end of the season, similar runs to what Luca had at the start and Barham at the finish of last season, then he's got a chance of being that player of the season for us, frankly. Wouldn't rule it out.
No, especially not considering some of the performances we've had throughout the season. But yeah, of course, nice to see that we're all in agreement for a change. Of course, congratulations to Josh. I'm sure he's going to win the club vote once that does come out. The general fan base vote, I think everybody tends to vote in favour of the goal scorer, especially when they've been as influential as he has. Of course, he's more than likely to get recognised by the fan base. So, of course, before we do just go on to the last segment, of course, which is the little look forward. Sean did touch on there, of course, Jack Barham leaving. Obviously gave his sentiments to that one. but yeah, it was a big loss. Someone who's been very, very important to Maidstone, especially last season. Been the focal point of this team for this season. Has been the top scorer, or is currently the top scorer of the club. Did join Aldershot a few weeks ago. So farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, Arrivederci, all the rest of it. To Barham, hopefully things do work out for you at Aldershot. Not too well that next time you play us or anything you start scoring goals, but yeah, it's always nice to see Maidstone players succeed no matter where they end up, as long as it's not for a bitter rival. So it's just a shame it had to be for Aldershot. But yeah, moving forward now, of course, onto the last part. We're going to look forward into the month of April now. We've got April Fool's Day coming up. Of course, this weekend we're going to be playing Boreham Wood at home, 3:00 kickoff. We're going to be playing Southend away, Barnet at home, Halifax away, Notts County at home, and Chesterfield away. So, out of those 6 games there, it seems on paper Halifax is probably the only place we're looking at a result. But of course, that doesn't mean a lot to this Maidstone team, because the somewhat unpredictable nature of what we could see. Obviously, performances have been a lot better, results not so much. And Nigel, you seem to think that there's going to be a couple of, or maybe the odd 1 or 2 upsets in this next month, just because that's what we do. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the way the season's going. You know, we've said it before. It's the old cliche, isn't it? Football's not played on paper. Team that's chasing promotion to the Football League and the team that's rooted to the bottom of the league come together in the second to last game of the season, don't they? So, you just wouldn't put it past this Maidstone team to just nick something from that game. I mean, we've already touched on it on, Wrexham. They took a last minute winner to beat us, and with the rare of talent they've got, Woking, third in the league, took a last minute winner to beat us. Barnet, we've played them in the FA Trophy, took them all the way to penalties. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Even Eastleigh, we beat them in the Trophy 4-0 convincingly away from home. They're in the playoff positions. It's just, you just got to keep believing, haven't you? It doesn't look likely, and you might be foolish to think it, but it's 11v11. You start each game at 0-0. Who knows? Go for it. I just think we're going to get something somewhere along the line. The irony of it is that Sean's touched on it in previous podcasts. The very first season we were in the National League, we had that last minute winner, didn't we, against Boreham Wood? And me popped up with that winner to guarantee our survival in the National League. The likelihood is that it's going to be Boreham Wood that sends us down this time, but such is life, Shit happens. It's life.
Yeah, the turmoil that is following Maidstone in football. Sean, looking ahead to next month, is there anything you maybe want to see from Maidstone? Of course, a few wins would be nice, but in terms of building and looking forward even further ahead than April, of course, is there anything that specifically you think we should be aiming to do in this coming month?
Well, I think the word "few" probably needs to be retracted and replaced with "a."
And singular win.
Exactly. I'd agree with Nigel that a win and win, just a W at some point in the last 6 would be good.
Months.
Home fans really do. I mean, both sets, home and away trips. It's 5 league wins all told. If you put the cup games there, there's going to be 4 each, I believe, because I think it's 3 league, 1 cup at home, and 2 apiece in the cup for wins. So yeah, as Nigel said, Boreham Wood at home. We've had enough of a history with them already this season and in previous seasons in the cup as well. Southend away, big ex-Football League club, going to be a fun trip on Good Friday. So it'll be Nigel and Darren will be doing Boreham Wood. Myself and yourself, Joe, will be covering the Southend game. Chris and Fred at Barnet. You know, as a Newcastle United fan as well, we've got Man United at the weekend. Cup final revenge is on the agenda. Hopefully, the same for the Barnet reunion on the 10th. That would be nice if we could get one over them potentially. Again, they might well be similar to Chesterfield and who we've got ahead, Woking, who we've already had, trying to get into that third spot, try and have one less playoff game, so they can always be tricky. They might be putting too much into that. Halifax away, I'm doing that one with Darren. That should be a fun trip. I'm making a weekend of that. I'm also going to see Newcastle's women the next day as well while I'm up in north. So however bad the football season's been for Maidstone, it's still a football season. It's still going to head to its fullest, and there have been moments we've enjoyed. And yeah, I'm looking forward to going to the Shea. It's an interesting stadium, I think, from what we've all seen in the past. So I look forward to going there. Not at home, penultimate game. Yourself and Connor are doing that. I obviously tipped Notts County very early on in our pre-season preview. It would be just my luck. I said to you guys between breaks that, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they go to Wrexham and win that match and then end up coming to the Gallagher and losing. So if we are going to get the cameras one last time this season, it'll probably be the moment we win the league for Wrexham on the weekend of the 22nd. And then Chesterfield, I believe that was the last away game, the last time we were relegated, or at least the penultimate away game that we had. I did that one last time as well. Nigel and I will be finishing off the 2-year cycle. We started off with Hemel once we'd all come back from COVID, and 18, 20 months later, we get the joy of seeing us get back to the exact same position we were 2 years ago. So just sums up football for you. Apparently a bit of a waste of time when you put all that time, blood, sweat, tears, effort in, and you've ended up 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. As I think it was Paula Abdul once sung that, didn't she?
I was going to say, you nicked my line. I was going to say that.
Opposites attract, yeah. So no, but well done for getting an 80s or 90s song there, Joe. That's progress for you, sir, with the references. That's good. So at least we've had that progress off pitch this season.
Something's happened. Yes, we've one step forward. There we go.
There might be one step forward and 2 steps back for
opposite. God.
Yeah, but either way, look it up on your streaming music apps. You'll find it. There's a weird dog thing dancing with her before I get cancelled. Yeah, so some interesting ties ahead. Some massive teams. There was I think it was a stat we had before the Solihull game that we had the hardest running out of absolutely everybody by about 2 or 3 positions worth when you took the aggregate of everybody that was left, and we had to play 7 of the top 10 in the last 12 games or something stupid. But we've taken most of those sides to late on. Solihull, they only got the second goal with 15 to go. Then, we've had Woking and Bromley. We've got Boreham Wood in the playoffs, Notts County in second, Chesterfield top 3 or 4. So it's not going to be easy, but at the same time, they're all 3 o'clock kickoffs. They're all to be there, to be played for. It's hoping that we don't have as bad a run and finish as we did 4 years ago. Because, we literally had Havant and Barnet wins at home, and we did nothing anywhere else. But I think I'll be honest, if we got a pair of home wins out of those next 3 matches, I think most people would think you got something wrong with you. So, as Boris Becker once said a decade ago, any win will do.
And there you go. Any win will do indeed going forward for this Maidstone team. That is going to sum up this podcast, I think. That is where we're going to end things. One last thing, just before we do the sign-off, going to leave a link in the description to Harley Earle's fundraiser page. On loan at Sittingbourne, received a really bad injury, multiple fractures to his face, eye socket, nose, cheekbone, you name it, he smashed it up. So yeah, there's going to be a link to that fundraiser down there. Even if you've got a small amount of money to donate to that one. Like myself, I didn't have a lot, but put something towards it. I know the family really well from when I was younger, went to school with his older brother. So, you know, if there's anything you can do to help out Harley, the situation he's in, unable to work due to the injuries, it'd be great if you could help him out there, of course. So yeah, that's going to wrap things up from all of us. From me, of course, Joe, Sean, Nigel, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed and you have made it this far, you must enjoy what you're seeing. So leave a subscription down below, leave a like on the video, of course, and leave your comments on this month of March down below too. Of course, we're all ears when it comes to Maidstone fans, unless you're talking utter rubbish, of course. But I'm only joking. There's no such thing as a bad opinion. I think someone's probably said that once upon a time who's more qualified than me. So leave that down below as well. Thank you all so very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Jesus H. Christ.
No.